Hello, and welcome to Weekend Wisdom. This is a podcast from creatingafamily.org, and I'm Tracy Whitney, your host for today's episode. The Weekend Wisdom is our opportunity to engage with you, our listeners, to talk about adoption, foster care, and kinship care, and the specific questions you have about raising and living and processing and dealing with all the issues surrounding adoptive, foster, or kinship-built families. So if you have questions, you can send them to info@creatingafamily.org. We comb through our archives, we pull up information from previous guest experts, we lean on some of our own lived experiences, and we work all those things together to create an answer that will hopefully strengthen your family. And we'd love it if you would tell your friends about Weekend Wisdom. We think that it's a great way for us to educate the masses about issues related to adoption, foster care, and kinship care, but we also think it's a great way for you to support the people around you. And so if you could tell a friend today about Weekend Wisdom or about our other podcast, Creating a Family, talk about adoption, foster care, and kinship care, we would so appreciate it. Thanks so much. And let's get right to today's question. Today, we're hoping to help Jessica and her husband navigate some parental leave issues, and she's got a pretty uncertain timeline. So here's her question. My husband and I are in the process of adopting a waiting child internationally. This is our first adoption, and we will soon be waiting to be matched with a child. I teach in higher education, and my schedule is coordinated about 9 months in advance. I'm working with my supervisors to try and make sure that my schedule for the coming year is flexible, but it's very difficult. And I have to account for uncertain adoption timing. It's been very difficult to navigate this with my job, especially because I have limited options for paid parental leave. I'm wondering if you have any insight on how to discuss a few of these specific questions with my employer. Number one, how to manage unpredictable adoption timelines that may require mid-semester leave on short notice. Number two, explaining the necessity of time off to bond with our new child, even though we don't have the physical recovery needs that a traditional birth includes. And number three, while teaching online is an option, bonding while teaching online seems like a daunting task. And if you have any insight on how to discuss these things with my employer or any additional details I should consider, I would love to hear your thoughts. Jessica, thank you so much for writing in. We are very excited for you and your adoption process. Being matched with a child is very exciting. And I know it's also pretty stressful and you have a lot of questions, and being matched will likely bring up more questions. And it's going to be kind of a uncertain time for you once you get the match and you get the timeline laid out by your agency. But let's focus a little bit on how to answer some of those questions that you shared with us and how to manage your professional life and the obligations that you have there with the unpredictability of an adoption timeline. So we're going to break it down and look at the questions one by one, but I wanted to make sure that you understand that you are not alone in this process. It is a very common concern that many pre-adoptive parents have, not just for international adoption, but for foster care or for domestic infant adoption. It's you can't really pin the process to a specific timeline and then count on that timeline to follow your expectations. So it requires a little bit of nimbleness. It requires a little bit of flexibility and kind of open-mindedness. So let's jump into the three questions. We're going to tackle them one by one. So the first question that you asked was about managing an unpredictable adoption timeline. So you understand that process doesn't come with specific locked-in due dates, but your employers might not understand that. And so it's going to be necessary for you to keep reinforcing the message that any conversations that you want to have with them about your leave will require flexibility and collaboration from both sides. So rather than offering them firm dates or promises about how this process is going to go, you'll need to just keep reinforcing, listen, my husband and I are just trying to be responsive and nimble, and we're asking that you be as flexible with us with my timeline as you possibly can be. Be clear that you may only have a few weeks or even a few days before you have to travel to accept placement of this child. And so while you're clear in that, you can try and show your due diligence by maybe proposing some contingency plans, like identifying a colleague who could do some guest lectures for you while you're away, or setting up a schedule where you kind of front load some of the teaching to kind of minimize what has to be done in person while you're away, or preparing some online modules, because online is, like you said, an option, but preparing some online recorded modules to cover your absence should you need to leave mid-semester. I suggest that you put these plans or suggestions in writing by email so that your supervisors can see that you're committed to minimizing disruption for your students, minimizing disruption for the administration, but also that you're committed to preparing realistically for this adoption. You'd also be establishing a protective paper trail for yourself in case a what if scenario rises up. So you could try saying something like, since adoption doesn't really come with a due date, I would love to set up a few contingency plans so that we're ready when our phone call comes. Here's what I'm thinking. And then just kind of list some of your ideas. You could also say something like, I may only get a few weeks notice before I have to travel, and I want to make sure that my classes and my students are covered no matter what. So here's what I'm working on. And when you establish that paper trail and you show them that you are willing to be preparing in advance and flexible about how this will go, you might get some more ground with them on the conversations. The second question you asked was about explaining the need for bonding time. And it's pretty common that the general public is not familiar with adoption and all of the issues that come with adopting a child, no matter their age. So they may not understand the crucial nature of what you're asking for, and you may have to do a little bit of educating. So you'll have to kind of take it as it comes, kind of sussing out what they know or what they understand about adoption and bonding. And you'll have to be clear that, yes, you understand you don't need physical recovery time, but that you and your child deserve that same kind of chunk of time to start to learn each other and set a good foundation between you for trust and attachment that will last the child's lifetime. You can frame it in terms of child development and student success. The research is very clear that children who join families through adoption, especially if they've experienced loss or trauma, they need concentrated time to build a trusting, secure attachment between them and their new caregivers. You could explain it like this. Our child will be adjusting to a new family, a new language, a new culture, and a new environment all at once. And that first stretch of time that we have together is so critical to helping them feel safe in our home and in our family. Bonding time during leave is what will help ensure their long-term success. If your institution or your employers have demonstrated in the past that they're committed to you and your family, this will probably be an easier conversation. If you don't feel like these are conversations you've had with them before, you might have a little bit of a harder time, and you still have to kind of figure out what works to get this conversation across and get that need across. If they don't have policies in place for adoptive parents, you can direct them to the equity that is found in the Family and Medical Leave Act, commonly known as FMLA. It recognizes the need for care and time off in adoption to be the same as the need for care and time off after birth. And that is to your benefit that FMLA recognizes them as equal. Many states have family leave laws, and unfortunately, every state's a little bit different. So your institute might have leave rules, policies. Then your state has leave laws. And again, every state's a little bit different. So familiarizing yourself with your state's laws and policies, you can ask your HR department to give you the links and resources from the state where you work. And those are all things that you can use to educate yourself and then educate your employer. And again, a lot of this depends on the relationship you already have with them and the relationship that you've seen demonstrated maybe in other families who've needed time off for things like adoption or foster care. The third question you asked is about how to balance teaching online with travel time and bonding time. And it might be very tempting to push back on their suggestions or expectations that you turn to online teaching while you're doing all this. And you're right in pushing back a little bit. It's hard to explain the uncertainty of adoption to someone who's not familiar with it. So, in the process of having these conversations, hopefully you've already been able to name those challenges with them: the international travel, the jet lag, the absolute upheaval for a child and their whole world changing, the sense, the sights, the smells, all the things that change for the child. And also managing while you're in country, things like embassy appointments and doctor's appointments and all the things that are required. And that's not even to say all the things that are required when you need to be emotionally present for and with this child in the early days of meeting them and then in the early days of bringing them home. So you can acknowledge to them that online teaching is technically possible, but you can also try to advocate for yourself that it's not optimal. It's not optimal for you, your child, or the students, because the students deserve to have you present and with them also. And if your focus and intentions and presence are split between your child and the needs of welcoming them to your family and welcoming them to your home and your students' needs, nobody's getting the best of you. And in that dynamic, you all deserve the presence that you can offer when you do things intentionally, like time off to bond. So again, this might require that you offer some proactive planning and some demonstration that you are thinking about these issues and you are trying to set plans in place that will minimize the gaps for the students, minimize the gaps for your employer, and then minimize the disruption to your child's process of becoming part of your family. So you could say something like, technically, yes, I can teach online, but between international travel, embassy appointments, medical appointments, and the adjustment period for our new child, I don't feel like I'm going to be able to give my best to the students or to my family. And I don't want to be backed into that corner. And again, establishing that paper trail, establishing those conversations, having, that demonstration of collaboration, all these things will help you. There's a couple additional things that we think you might want to consider. You didn't necessarily ask about them, but these are some things that we think might help you as you're working through these questions. Number one, do some research into your legal protections, because even if your university doesn't have generous paid parental leave, you may qualify for an FMLA job protected leave if you've been employed there long enough. Some states go even further, offering partial wage replacement for adoptive parents. And so these are the key things that we want you to think about: protecting yourself, protecting your family, collaborating with your employer in a respectful way, but keeping your intentions on your new family dynamic as your priority. It's hard. These uncertain timelines are crazy to try and manage. Don't get too far ahead of yourself. Take it one day at a time. Do the planning that you can do and be focused on solutions, not just challenges. When they see you trying to work with them, it's more likely that goodwill will be established and they'll try and work with you. So try to outline, when you do meet with them in person or by email, again, your anticipated needs for flexibility and bonding time and leaving in the middle of the semester, that kind of thing. But then also, again, focus on those proactive steps that you're ready to take to protect your teaching load and the students' interests. And then demonstrate a commitment to revisit this conversation as the adoption timeline unfolds. Things might be less unpredictable than you expect. You might have more lead time than you expect. And so staying in open communication with them about those things will help you. And I want to say one last thing to encourage you. Again, you're not alone in this. It can be stressful, but it's not uncommon. And so it sounds like you've got a pretty supportive team around you, and that's huge. When you frame it both as success for your family and success for your students, you may find again that they're pretty eager to work with you. You don't have to have all the answers right now. You don't have to know the timeline right now, but you do have to set that collaborative tone right now. So, congratulations on moving forward in your adoption process. It's exciting. Getting that match and saying yes to that match is exciting. And so I'm looking forward to that for you. I'm glad that you and your husband are approaching this whole process so thoughtfully. I think it demonstrates a great future for how you approach your child's needs in the future. And that thoughtfulness and that intentionality will be a really good skill to have as you raise this child. So thanks so much, Jessica, for writing in and for taking the time to listen. If you or any of our other listeners found today's information helpful, please leave us a rating or a review. That helps us get more information like this into the hands or the ears of other listeners who might find us. If you could tell a friend about how this helped you today, we'd also appreciate that. So thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week.